The next section of our presentation, we're going to get into adding our roof on. So we'll show you how we get our various roof options. So let's go ahead and move into that. So here's our floor plan view, and I'm going to go down into our first floor. I'll zoom out a little bit so we can see our entire floor plan. And we're going to get up into our roof options. So here's our roof tools. And I'm going to simply double click to bring up the Build Roof dialog box. So these are all the defaults that are set for our roof. And we have an option to create an auto roof, so it just automatically builds and rebuilds roofs as we make changes. So I'm going to add that so that going forward, any changes that we make to our roof, it's just going to happen right on the fly. We have specified a pitch of 8 and 12 when we automatically build this roof. We have overhangs for our eaves and gables at 18 inches. There's lots of options in terms of our roof. Our rafters, are they square, plumb cut, boxed eaves, the makeup of the roof surface, the thickness, the sheathing thickness, soffit materials, whether we're supplying gutters and edge flashing and so on. We can get into the specifics of the framing. So if we're stick framing the roof, we can specify a rafter tail. If we have exposed rafter tails, there's many different rafter profiles that we can choose from. The details on our gutter and frieze, and then our roof materials. And at the end, we have a roof styles tab. So these are the various roof types that we can automatically generate with the program. The program, by default, if you don't give it any other information, it's going to create a hip style roof. So let's take a look at what happens with the hip style roof. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So here's our hip roof that's been created. But let's examine what we're looking for in our design. So we'd like to create some gables here and a roof return, a full roof return. We have some dormers up here, and we have a gable roof up top. So we have a bit of work to do to get the condition that we're looking, as well as a covered porch. So to get our gables going, I'm going to select on this front wall. We'll activate our plan view. I'm going to select and control and select so I can get both of these walls at the same time. And there's an edit tool command at the bottom just to change this wall to a gable wall. So if I do that with a single click, it's going to quickly make that into a gable wall. Now there's some further edits I happen to want to make with this. So with those two selected, I'm going to open them. And we're going to go into our roof tab and add on a roof return, and that is going to be a full roof return that comes all the way through. We'll go ahead and click OK. So that's the condition I was looking for. Now, in addition, I'd like to run a gable that comes from across this wall as well as here. So when I select on this wall, it's giving me a selection of this entire wall. So in this case, I'd like to break that wall so I can run my gable just across here. So there's a handy tool called a break wall tool. It snaps right to that intersection. And now, when I select this wall, it gives me that selected roof. So I'm going to hit Control and select this one. We'll change them to gables. Okay. And this one, I'm going to add a little bit more to it, but let's go up to our second floor. So I'd like to change these to gables as well. So I'll just Shift, select the two, click to gable, and let's rotate this around. So we've got that condition we're looking for on that side. And since this is a visible area where the garages are facing, probably like to add a roof return there. So let's go ahead and get down to our first level. And I'll double click on that wall and we'll do an automatic roof return, 36 inch, and we'll click OK. That just helps to dress up that end of the garage. Okay. I think we have our second story set in pretty well here. Let's move on to the next area of our presentation, which is to create a foundation, and we're also going to create a porch, a covered porch in the front of our project. So I'm going to go up to our floor plan, activate that. We'll zoom out a little bit so we can see our entire project. And we're going to go once again to our floor tools, and we have a button for building our foundation. And much like our roof, we get a dialog box that will help us to figure out what we're looking for and create the condition. So for our house that we're dealing with, I'm going to make this a crawl space. So we have options here under foundation type: walls with footings, walls with piers, or a monolithic slab on grade. So we're going to select the walls with footings option for our crawl space, and the wall foundation type we're using is an 8-inch concrete stem wall. And for the purposes of the presentation, we're going to stick with the default 37.5-inch stem wall height, and that's going to give me a 36-inch basement crawl space. There's many options that we have to set here in terms of how we represent the footing, a treated sill plate, and size. If we get into our options tab, we can deal with the steel that we're using, so the number of courses of bars that are in our footing or wall or pier or slab, as well as the spacing of the rebar and the size of the rebar and overlap and so on. So we'll go ahead and just stick with our defaults on the foundation and click OK. Now the program, much like the second floor, is saying, well, do you want me to do the work, or do you want to start from a blank plan? We'll go ahead and have the software create the foundation from the first floor plan. We'll click OK. Okay. So here's our foundation that's been added, and you'll notice that we have that step from our garage because we've specified a bit different foundation type, and the program figured that out when it built the foundation under the garage for that slab. So we could do a quick 3D view of what that looks like. Let's go ahead and get into our camera options, and we'll do a perspective floor overview, and we can just rotate around and see what that foundation looks like. Now the structural part of our foundation, we're going to get into that part when we're dealing with our framing. So we're probably going to have some additional foundation walls here for the purposes of how we're going to support our second floor and our first floor. And we'll get into those details when we get into our framing section.